Welcome to Fast Track Gains. I'm here to help you accelerate your gains. This is the third episode of my ninth series, Training Plateaus. Once you have broken through the very first 3-month burnout plateau and the second beginner plateau, you are now a proper intermediate. And what awaits ahead of you is the third plateau, the intermediate plateau. To some extent, you can call the whole intermediate stage training as the intermediate plateau, because while the beginner stage is short and sweet, the intermediate stage is long and arduous, and it can trap a lot of serious lifters for a very long time, if not forever. In fact, almost all the biggest fitness YouTube channels like Alex Leonidas, Basement Bodybuilding, Natural Hypertrophy, and Renaissance Periodization, they all have addressed the intermediate stage training in one way or another, because unlike other plateaus that typically only occur at a certain point of time, the whole period of your intermediate stage training can be called the intermediate plateau for 3 reasons. Number 1, you can only make slow progress, but progress matters most at this stage. By the time you are a proper intermediate lifter, on average, you will have more than 1 year of training experience under your belt. Now, as your body is familiar with all your tricks, you can no longer make any easy progress. But as you are not an advanced yet, you still have to make progress from one way or another. Whether it is strength progress, rep progress, volume progress, or some other kind of progress, you need to grind day in, day out in order to squeeze the progress out of your reluctant body. Number 2, there's a long distance you have to cover as intermediates when it comes to muscle growth. By my own standards, fat-free mass index anywhere between 20.4 to 23 could be considered as intermediates, and that is a very long range. Even on individual level, you generally have to move up your fat-free mass index by 2 points. For example, from 20.5 to 22.5 in order to be qualified as a late intermediate. And that means you have to put another 6 to 7 kilos of muscle to your frame depending on your height. This is not an easy task for a beginner with the help of newbie gains, let alone for an intermediate. And it would generally take a natural lifter a good few years to achieve that, if not longer. Number 3, there's a lot of nuance you have to decipher yourself. As I've mentioned in my previous video, the transitioning nature is much more prevalent in the intermediate category than the other 2 categories. The issues that an early intermediate who has just graduated from beginner category has to face will be vastly different from the issues that a late intermediate who is about to enter advanced category has to face. And as a result, simplified thinking like just add more weight will not always work in intermediate stage training. When you combine the long distance, slow progress, and ever-changing nuance together, there's a strong reason to call the whole intermediate stage training as the intermediate plateau. And that's why I call it the longest plateau you will ever have to face. So, how to break the longest plateau? Well, unlike the first 2 plateaus that are very easy to break, there are a lot of things you have to do in order to break for this one. And for you to understand those things in detail, you probably have to watch quite some of my previous videos. Number 1, creating your own system. This may sound like a cliche, but before you arm your body with more muscle, you need to arm your mind with more knowledge. As an intermediate, any fitness advice can be relevant to you, but you need to evaluate all the advice and make a contextualized decision based on your own situation. This means that you need to create your own system in order to think analytically. And here, I'm going to play a clip from my previous video, Hacking into the Ultimate Hypertrophy Code, Early Intermediate, to explain the reason why it is important for you to create your own system. Remember what I said at my beginner phase? I was very fortunate to have found athlete X, and I was following it for quite some time without questioning. The reason back then was if you can't follow a trustworthy source, you will be overwhelmed by the endless charlatans making the most ridiculous claims, or stuck in this trap of paralysis by analysis because of the information overload. Well, that is definitely the best advice I can give for any beginner. But when progress to early intermediate phase, as you have accumulated enough basic training knowledge, now it may be a good time for you to start finding other fitness channels, absorb new concepts, cross reference various opinions, assimilate different ideas, and begin to create your own system. And perhaps no one can be a better example to explain this critical mental shift than the legend himself, Bruce Lee. It is well documented that he was firstly mentored by Ip Man to study Wing Chun of Kung Fu style, and that was the foundation of his martial art knowledge. However, it is also well documented that he later on practiced with so many other martial artists, absorbed their concepts, and assimilated their styles, and created his very own system in the end, Jet Kune Do. That is why he famously said this quote: adapt what is useful, reject what is useless, and add what is specifically your own. It is necessary for Bruce Lee to follow Ip Man at the very beginning, just like it is necessary for you to follow a trustworthy source at your beginner phase. But it was even more so necessary for Bruce Lee to jump out of his mentor's sphere, to study from others, create his own system, and become a legend himself. Just like it is more necessary for you to discover new channels, absorb new ideas, and create your own thinking. This critical mental shift, the earlier it happens after beginner phase, the better. And I was extremely fortunate to have this kind of mental shift at my early intermediate phase. And without a doubt, this mental shift is the single biggest harvest that I have at my early intermediate phase. Number two, bulking. If you're still dreaming of body recomposition or maintaining as an intermediate, then prepare to stay intermediate forever, as muscle tissues are metabolically expensive. Not going on a bulk will only install your progress. And if you want to know how to bulk properly, this is the link of my bulking series. Stop being obsessed with staying lean and sexy six-pack abs. If you want to grow, you gotta bulk. This is the most potent weapon to help you break the intermediate plateau. Number three, gradually increase your training volume. Since strength cannot always play as the main driver of your progressive overload, training volume has to gradually step up and take the driver's seat. This means more reps and more sets. A good way to achieve that is by swapping some free weight compound exercises with cable exercises. And if you want to know the reason why in detail, you can refer to my previous series, Free Weights versus Cables versus Machines, in particular, the second episode, Intermediate Hypertrophy. Number four, choosing the appropriate training split. As you have to keep pushing on every front of your training aspects, choosing the training split that allows you to do that will be very important. And if you're using bro split or full body split before, you may want to consider switching it to push-pull legs or upper and lower body split, because these two splits are the only two splits that allow you to simultaneously push on training intensity, training frequency, and training economy. Number five, increase your cardiovascular fitness. It might be an unusual recommendation, but this idea is definitely endorsed by Dr. Andy Galpin.
A very recent study came out where they had individuals perform 6 weeks of purely aerobic endurance, steady state, long duration endurance for 6 weeks, I think, prior to starting a hypertrophy phase. Compared that to individuals who did not do that. And those folks that did these 6 weeks of just, I think it was cycling actually, just endurance work, had more muscle growth at the end of their hypertrophy training than those folks that did not. So this shows you very clearly there are a lot of advantages that come with being physically fit to growing muscle. So folks that also have actually hit plateaus a lot, one of the things you may actually see some benefit from is actually doing a little bit more endurance work, whether it's the steady state stuff, maybe it's the higher intensity stuff. Certainly if you're starting a training phase, it's a pretty good idea to do that.
And case in point, my personal experience certainly corroborates with this recommendation. You can refer to my previous video, Hacking into the Ultimate Hypertrophy Code, late intermediate. So, increasing your cardiovascular fitness could be the most secret weapon to help you break the intermediate plateau. That's it, guys. The third plateau you have to face on your journey, the intermediate plateau. With patience and all the above recommendations, I'm sure you will break the longest plateau. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel. In the next episode, I will talk about the fourth plateau, which is the most difficult plateau out of all plateaus. Stay tuned. Thank you for your support, and I will see you all in the next video. Peace out.